is 250. 6 months later, it's down to 220, and before the end of the year, we are back to a price that it was before or even less. That's what we're looking forward to as Nigerians. So we just hope that we're implementing the solution. We know the problem, we know the solution. Hope we are already implementing it to make sure that this hardship doesn't continue, but it goes better. That if fuel subsidy is going to be removed gradually, that hopefully as it's being removed gradually, that the money is being taken into building refineries, so that we'll wake up tomorrow and you know what, we have a refinery. Not only that our fuel subsidy is gone, but we are now producing this oil by ourselves, which automatically means we will have it, there won't be scarcity, and then the price will go down.
Truly, I look forward to that, Rachel. Still on the Punch newspaper, other stories we have on the train attack. 2 Edo chiefs and 5 others have been arrested. That means they're actually working with those. So we'll just keep our fingers crossed concerning all the persecution that'll be done on that. Federal government asks US to probe Nigerian Don's death. And we have on Delta 2022 Monumental Mental Paddling 10th National Sports Festival. So for those who are interested in that Delta Festival, look for the story on page 28 and 29. And the picture story here, we can still see motorists queuing up at different filling stations in Lagos on Wednesday to actually try to see if they can get the fuel, and even some are actually with some of their jerrycans to see if they can get it. Whether that is all on the Punch newspaper.
On Nigerian Tribune, Section 65 of Electoral Act dangerous, coming from Olani Pekun, and you can read that on page 2. Federal government, state, local government shared 990.189 billion naira in December 2022. Atiku campaigns in Ogun, promises power devolution, industrialization. Still on Edo train kidnap, 2 traditional rulers, 5 others arrested as remaining 2 victims regain freedom. Kidnappers demand 20 million naira on 4 tipper lorry drivers abducted in Kwara. You can read that story on page 29 of Nigerian Tribune. Delta identifies 35 flashpoints of illegal cattle grazing. And on $53 million debt, Emefiele appeals against summons, and you can read that on page 30. IGP not retiring at 60, has a 4-year tenure. This is coming from the Police Affairs Minister, and you can read that on page 30. FEC okays NNPC to invest 1.9 trillion naira in 44 federal roads, and you can read that on page 2. We can see a picture story of campaigns and rally of the PDP at Ogun State, and that's all the news on Nigerian Tribune.
On the Vanguard newspaper at 90. Nigeria's next president should come from the southeast. This is coming from the NCEF. You can read that story too. And we have another gradual removal of petrol subsidy starts April, coming from the federal government. Those campaigning are saying they will get rid of it quickly. It's safer for the current administration to start removing the fuel subsidy from the second quarter, coming from the Finance Minister, Ahmed. At 3.25 trillion naira subsidy cost must be exited. That you can find on page 5 of the Vanguard newspaper. Our work is speaking for us. This is coming from the Kwara governor, and Buhari have approved 1.9 trillion naira for NNPC intervention in 44 road projects. And I truly hope that every dime of this money is being channeled to this road construction, because we cannot overemphasize the importance of us having a very good and we are having as a result of kidnapping, especially on our road. It's a pity that you can see that even on highways that the roads are very, very bad, and that can actually stand as a risk to commuters, those who have to use that route. We can see that in the paper you read, Kwara, lorry driver was adopted, and then money is being demanded for their ransom and all of that. Yesterday we saw that some people, while they went to pay the ransom, they were kidnapped as a result of that. So you can see that all of these are happening as a result of bad routes, and then we're having some people that when the money is being given to them, it's being siphoned to something different other than what it was assigned for. So I just hope that this 1.9 trillion naira is being channeled to these 44 federal routes, and I hope that the contractors that are giving this project would please use good materials to make sure that this road will stand the test of time. We do not want a road that is being constructed and then the moment we're having the rains coming and then these roads are back to square one all over again. So I hope that the contractors will do their work and that every dime of this money will go to this road.
And you know, one of the challenges will continue, or the type of project, is that the new administration comes in, because they were not the one that gave it out, often forgets it. But I think we're grateful that we have it on paper that 1.9 trillion naira has been given. Like that was given. I think as citizens of Nigeria, we should be able to remind the government as this road done, have the contractors come through, have the NNPCL finish these 44 roads, because we need to know this is Nigerian money, and we know that one of the problems we've been facing as a country is theft, embezzlement, money laundering, and all of that. Projects being given and years gone is not finished, and stories left, right, center. We have so many projects in this country that should have been done many years ago. Money has been awarded for it, but still it looks like nothing has been done. So I just hope that this is not one of those projects that whoever is the next administration coming in will look into the books and look at the project that the past administration has given, and also focus on it and making sure it completely is done completely, because I know it's a normal thing that you come in and your attention goes another way because you have your own
agenda.
Exactly. But this is a Nigerian agenda, so you are the president of Nigeria. This road is going to favor us also. For that reason, it shouldn't be neglected.
Of course, of course. Still on the Vanguard newspaper, we have on Offer Bank robbery, how Kyari offered me 10 million naira and visa to implicate Saraki. This is coming from the suspect. You can read more detail of that story on page 6. And we have on law, examine Albert Bassi post-conviction ball Guba ambition. We have the picture story here and other stories flying on the paper. So you can do well, grab the Vanguard newspaper and read any other story that is of interest to you.
On the Guardian newspaper, CBN analyst fears over counterfeit new naira notes. Buhari okays 1.9 trillion naira for NNPC to reconstruct 44 federal roads. Obong of Calabar re-elected days after sacking by Supreme Court. I was offered 10 million naira visa to implicate Saraki, says offer robbery suspect. And the big story on the Guardian newspaper, $1 billion anti-terrorism spending. Posters on Buhari's security success. The writer says how over-invoicing, lack of transparency make nation unsafe. This is coming from Uweze. No price too high to pay for political stability. Retired Deputy IGP justifies anti-terrorism funding. Insecurity wars under current administration, CISLAC insists. At the downside of the paper, senior advocates question legal framework of 2023 election, and you can read that on page 3. I understand Nigeria's issues, says Kwankwaso at Chatham House, and we hope to see what you do when you become the president, if you truly understand our issues, and you can read that on page 3, and that's all the news on the Guardian newspaper.
On Daily Independent, Edo train kidnap, police arrest 2 monarchs and 5 others. At last, 2 victims regain their freedom. That means there's nobody in captivity. And I'm happy with the swift movement from the Edo government and everybody to make sure that these people are back to their family. This is what we want, and we really have to applaud, you know, the security agency, the vigilantes, and everybody that make sure that these people regain their freedom. And I'm happy that we can see arrests left, right, and center. These are the kind of thing we need proactiveness coming from every area. So I'm really happy, and we really have to applaud the government and the security agency for doing their best to make sure they rescue these people. At Chatham House, Kwankwaso say NNPP is the only grown party. So you can read more of that story on the front page and also on page 4 of Daily Independent. The big story, police officers are less corrupt now, federal government declares, with the rider says no retirement for the IGP Baba before 2023 election. FEC okays 1.35 billion naira, 31 utility vehicles for Oguni cleanup. Approved 2.29 billion naira for aircraft assembling plants in Nigeria, and give NNPCL International, I take that story, give NNPC Limited note to invest 1.9 trillion naira in the 44 federal roads. Wike hint on G5 preferred presidential candidate. You can read that story on page 29. Buhari made little to no progress in fight against corruption and impunity coming from Syrup. Obaseki raised the alarm over ravaging Lassa fever, says over 50 persons affected with 5 things affected. And this really a sad story, so we hope that the Edo state government will look into that, and other governors and health commissioners will be on their toe to make sure that this illness is being taken care of. And still on the SPV, Atiku demands unreserved apology from Tinubu. You can read that story on page 7. NDLEA rescued 3,733 convictions in 24 months. PDP calls for state of emergency in Imo over rising insecurity, says insecurity in the state threats to its preparation for 2023 polls. And downside of the paper we have on Peace Corps, NAS begin transmission of enabling legislature to presidency. That you can find on page 6. And you know, I'm really happy with this story that police officers are less corrupt now. This is coming from the federal government. Of course, I know some people will be of a different opinion, but we've seen police actually standing out for justice. We've seen them being on the side of no corruption. We've seen police officers that do not collect bribe. But then my angle toward this story is the fact that they should be well taken care of at the end of the day, because we still have others that are still collecting 15 naira on the road, 10 naira on the road, and this is belittling of their status as a security agency. I'm looking forward to where we'll have a Nigeria that is free of all of this corruption. And I'm happy it has made it to the paper that they are less corrupt coming from the federal government, but I hope we'll do much more than just telling them they are less corrupt, to making sure that they are not corrupt at all, because it's really something we saw during the Armed Forces Remembrance Day. Lots of the pensioners are complaining they are not being given their money. For those who have lost their life, the widows are not taken care of. And all of this, we have yesterday, I think the pension board came out to give some of the reasons why they're unable to pay all of this. But I hope they work towards it so that we can actually have a security agency serving this country with all their strength. Because I know that lots of us have actually forgotten what the anthem and also the pledge is all about. If you say you promise to serve Nigeria with all your strength, you're actually saying that you give everything within you to do your best for the lives and properties of Nigeria. So this is what we hope to see as security agency, not just the police officer, but the army, the forces, and every other person, Navy, and anybody that is trying their best to make sure Nigeria is secure. So we look forward to seeing much more coming from that. And that's all on the Daily Independence.
On Daily Sun newspaper, Konkoso, I will never step down, support Obi, asked Atiku Tinubu to withdraw from election, and you can read that point from on page 6 and 27. And Celia, I would like to say some of the requests these candidates make and the things they say to one another, I must admit some is funny and bizarre in a lot of ways, because obviously you know that they will not step down for you. It's almost like you're making an impossible request, but either way, you like go ahead and say that. On the previous paper, I can see Atiku asking Tinubu to apologize. And I don't know what this is all about, but these men obviously are always saying things to each other and demanding what they know they won't get from one another. And I know it's very wrong, but some of the things they say is entertaining and something you can look forward to as an individual. But I just wish and I hope that it will just stop us saying simple things like this than hate word or fueling anger in your supporters that will lead to problem in the future. I keep saying this is not surprising. These people will keep going back and forth with each other until the election comes and go, but then it shouldn't be like this. Let's hear you just keep throwing out what you want to do for Nigerians. You mentioned, Konkoso mentioned on the previous paper that he knows what Nigeria needs. How about you tell us what Nigeria needs than telling the other running mates to step down when you know they will obviously not do that? So we're just waiting and hoping to see who will win, and then we'll be done with all of these on the papers. Still on Daily Sun newspaper, the Sun awards motivation to do more, Haruna Magolu, and you can continue with that on page 6. NNPCL to spend 215.3 billion naira on Southeast South-South roads. And the big story, Obasanjo reveals why MKO Abiola didn't become president. And you can read why on page 6. Fresh crisis rocks APC NWC over agents portal mode of primaries for Imo, Kogi, and Bayelsa. NNPCL to spend additional 1.9 trillion naira on 44 roads nationwide. The writer says FEC approves all companies' intervention projects. NLC president fights publicly with civil servants, threatens to sack them, and you can read that on page 23 on 25. And at the downside of the paper, we have 2023 will be tougher for drug barons and cartels, Mara is assuring Nigerians, and you can read that on page 4. And that's all the news on Daily Sun.
All right, let's take a look at the Matrix newspaper. Minister dismisses Khalid, the Inspector General of Police, inches closer to his retirement age. Mohammed, Minister of Police Affairs, says there is no issue concerning the development. According to records available to the Matrix, the IGP will clock 60 on March 1st, 2023, a few days before the governorship and state assemblies election. So he won't be retiring, for those who have been raising concerns on that. So you can do well by read more detail inside the paper. Still ahead, while we have spent over $1 billion spent on weaponry to fight Boko Haram, says Buhari. So you can read more on the money that have been spent on weapons to actually fight all of these insurgents. Incompetent people use religion for political economic gain, coming from President Muhammadu. And the big story here is for the 2023, the front runners Chatham House show how they feared. Tinubu spoke clearly on Nigerians' challenges require solution. This is coming from his aide. Obi vowed to destroy structures holding Nigeria back. Kwankwaso says 24 years of mistake, wrong choices crippled Nigeria. Atiku didn't reply to our invitation. This is coming from the Chatham House alleges. Well, we can see out of this. So you have to keep your fingers crossed, because hopefully maybe on national talk we'll be having where they have to analyze some of all of these promises coming from our presidential candidate. This is not the first time we are having somebody vying for a position, not just for president, but even on governorship. We see them giving us one promises after another, and then 2 months, 3 months, 5 months, 1 year down the line, you now start giving us excuses why you're unable to live up to your promises. Did you know that you will actually have challenges on your way before you make those promises? So we have to keep our fingers crossed. And just like we say, the journalists, we are the watchdog of the society, to keep them on their toe, to make sure that for every word you say, you'll be whole accountable for it at the end of the day. I think it's high time we'll start having maybe a town hall meeting where we invite maybe starting from even our representative down the state level, our senators will call you back every quarterly maybe, or every year, to actually analyze what you have done so far. Maybe when we start doing that, and then when you don't do well, we call you back home and say, it seems you do not know why we send you over there, because we are your employer. We employ them. I think we're yet to realize that we have the power as a man. We are the employers, Rachel, because it is your tax money, it is my tax money that is being used to pay all of these public holders. But then they fail to realize that, and so when you go to office and then after 2-3 months you forget yourself entirely and begin to act as you choose to. So I think it's high time we start holding them accountable, even though we can say Atiku has not actually could I say he have refused to actually reply the invitation from them. So maybe he's holding on to his own manifestos for a proper time, but then we're keeping our fingers crossed, and we just hope that it's not just about the talk, but then that they walk the talk at the end of the day. Something we all look forward to seeing at the end of the day.
And truly having a town hall meeting where these people that we have voted into power come and give us progress report is very important. Like, accountability is key. You can't promise us this and that, and just as you said it is not your money from your pocket that you are to achieve this thing. It's still the government money, it's our taxes, it's the money from the people that you are supposed to build your community, you're supposed to build a state, and you're not doing it. and then it looks like we are asking you to do what you're not supposed to do, or you're doing us a favor by doing that which we have voted you into power to do. So we really look forward to that. And at the same time, one of the concerns we've been having is when these candidates make outrageous promises that we know that, you know what, we're not asking you to do magic. We just want you to come and start doing what we'll see will give us growth, even when you're no longer in power. But I think they have this mentality that when you sell something too big to the people, that's when you will know. We want you to give us doable action. We want you to tell us, I will be able to do this. And as a layman, a common one will sit down and say, you know what, yes, I think this man can do this. And within a period of time that is logical and that will make sense, not just some promise that you know in your heart you're just selling this thing out. And even those who want to vote for you are having doubts on whether you can achieve this at that period of time. We don't want that. We just want someone who will come and make Nigeria work gradually, not magically. We won't wake up and everything is perfect. But
Let's 1.9 trillion naira, the Labour Party candidate. And then we have from the FAAC, federal, state, federal government, state and local government share over 990 billion naira for December 2022. And we can see the three that actually made it to the Chatham House. There we see Tinubu, Kwankwaso and Obi. Downside of the paper from Ukraine, we have how war led to fatal helicopter crash. This is coming from Zelensky. So you can grab the paper and read more detail of any story that is of interest to you. Before we move on further to the papers, we'd like to take a break. So we'd love to hear what your inputs are, your contribution. So you can drop them on our Facebook and YouTube pages. And when we're back from the break, we'll open the phone line. We really love to hear what your inputs are concerning any story. Please do not go anywhere. We'll be right back after the timeout. And also security. And also we saw that first cast is still biting hard, and federal government have issued 1.9 trillion naira for the construction of 44 federal roads. So you can actually drop your contribution on our Facebook and YouTube channel handles, and also you can also call us in because our phone numbers are displayed on your screen. I still have Rachel here with me, and she'll be taking us through the next paper.
on Leadership newspaper, Obi promises new Nigeria at Kaduna rally. IGP not retiring to complete 4-year tenure. Darkness looms as GenCos get only 30% gas supply, and you can read that on page 8. NNPCL gets 1.9 trillion naira approval to construct 44 roads. And the big story on Leadership, amid rising verbal attacks by candidate, Abdul Salami committee warns against violence and incitement. The writer says Atiku Tinubu refused to shed swords, continued mudslinging. Kwankwaso asks Atiku Asiwaju to withdraw from race over allegations. Nigerians should vote only patriotic servant leaders. This is coming from the Catholic bishops, and you can read that on page 4. Court dismisses suit against APC same faith ticket. And from editorial, still on DSS allegations against Emefiele. Drug barons face tougher year ahead, Mawa declares, and you can read that on page 10. And that's all the news on Leadership.
All right, let's take a look at the Voice of Liberty. On the paper we have on 2023 elections, we need 530,533 security operatives. This is coming from the INEC. So I believe that the IGP of the police and also civil defense and every other person are on their toe to make sure we realize this number of security operatives for a successful election. And at the Chatham House, I will withdraw from 2023 race if I see a better candidate. This is coming from Kwankwaso. Rules out stepping aside for Peter Obi. Still ahead, the election election, you will get reward appointments contract based on your election result, article to PDP members. And we have on 2023, still Nigerians worried election may be inconclusive and violent. This is coming from General Abdul Salami. The chairman of the National Peace Accord Committee, General Abdul Salami Abubakar, has revealed that Nigerians are highly disturbed and are entertaining the fear that the forthcoming general election may be marred by violence. And we can see the picture of some of the violence we do encounter during the election. Ballot papers are being stolen and all of that. Security agency at risk and also all of that. So Nigerians are truly scared, and definitely, but we hope and believe that this year will be a different, that we'll see a very fair, peaceful and credible election at the end of the day. Still ahead on the Voice of Liberty, IGP Steno extended rules for retirement change, coming from the Police Affairs Minister. And coming from the spokesperson of the Northern Elders Forum, Nigeria's next president must convene national conference. And also we have another story from Oxfam International. Dangote Abdul Salam Rabiu Adenuga richer than 83 million Nigerians put together. Now, what is the reason for that? We hope we look inwardly to see how we can tap from all of these riches that are coming from some of our, our men here, Adenuga, Dangote, and all of that. Even though they're doing their best to raise and also leave many from some of the unemployed youth we have around. But we hope that at the end of the day, we'll begin to see changes in the lives of Nigerians at the end of the day. Downside of the paper on insecurity, Nigeria has spent over $1 billion on purchase of weapons in 8 years. This is coming from Buhari. He's revealing. Well, we are looking forward to much being done on that. I remember, was it last year or so, where we're still yet to hear the result of the probe being done about some of the missing armories that were missing from the police custody. We're yet to hear the people that have been, some of the people that have been captured, arrests have not been done, and all of that. And these are part of the story we always see, Rachel. It will be on our paper, and then we'll not hear anything being done about it, no feedback. We need accountability, because just like we say, these are weapons that we should give account for. If the president standing up there spend $1 billion on purchase, and yet we're yet to, to totally do away with insecurity, then some things are things that Nigerians are hoping to hear, so they know that work is being done. So we keep our fingers crossed, and we hope that everything will be done as it should be done. And that's all on the Voice of Liberty.
All right, one of the major problems we had when this whole Boko Haram menace was at its peak was that they had better, higher grade weapons than the military. Now I'm hearing what Buhari is saying concerning how much has been spent on weapons. $1 billion is a lot of money. It means that we should be up to their standard. I mean, it's sad to have to say that, but then it means that we should have good enough weapons that Boko Haram shouldn't be a problem when it comes to being head on with them concerning weapons. Now the question is, if we spend this much on weapons over 8 years, why are we still struggling with Boko Haram? Why are we still having herdsmen? Why are we still having terrorist attack? Why do we still have internally displaced people? Why are people not gone back to their homes? Why are we still struggling with Boko Haram? Now, is the president directly trying to tell us that weapons are not the problem when it comes to fighting Boko Haram? Because it clearly means that we have the weapons, we've purchased enough. Then what is stopping us from being completely done with terrorism in Nigeria? So it's not just enough for him to tell us the weapons or how much that has been spent on weapons, but what's the progress so far? What are the stance of the military concerning Boko Haram as it is in Nigeria? Are we almost done with Boko Haram? Are we going to see few years from now that we will no longer have terrorists in this country? Because that is what we want as Nigerians. Not 90% success. We want 100% success. We want to go back to a Nigeria where we are not even among a country that are struggling with terrorism, because it will keep setting us back no matter how we try. As long as there's a little bit of terrorism in Nigeria, whether it's 1%, it's still going to set us back, because we won't have mega investors coming because of the fear of safety and all of that. So we don't want to hear how much you spent on weapons, because now that you're telling us this, you're indirectly telling us that we have enough weapons to fight Boko Haram, but we are not done with them. So what is the problem? What is the success so far, and where do we stand as a
about the weapons? But I see that always give us up, because after our security agency have mapped our strategy, if you've seen the paper, we've been recording success. That is to show that security agency are up on their game, so we really have to give it up to them, and we hope that much more will be done at the end of the day. Well, let's move to the other papers, Rachel.
On New Telegraph newspaper, excess crude account depletes by 99% to 473,754 dollars. The writer says FAAC shared 990 billion naira to federal government, states and local governments in December. Naira redesign curbs Nigeria's pre-election cash surge, and you can read that on page 25. Coming from Obasanjo, how BBHS modeled Awolowo, Abiola, Bola, Ajibola, others, and I. Why IGP Baba won't retire now, police affairs ministers. Same fate candidacy, cause strikes out suit against Tinubu. New Nigeria possible, says Obi in Kaduna. You can read that on page 4. The big story on New Telegraph, federal government to fast-track fuel subsidy removal from June to April, says COVID-19 delayed initial decision to ensure cost does not exceed 3.23 trillion naira, and you can read that on page 4. We won't stop general election in Southeast, Masop is assuring us, and you can read that on page 2. And the SPV saga, apologize to me or risk exposure, Atiku tells Tinubu. Attack on Ikenga, declare state of emergency if insecurity persists, Imo PDP tells Buhari. How mineral resources struggle, escalated terrorism in the north. This is coming from Konkoso, and you can read that on page 5. Still on New Telegraph newspaper, Christian elders express concern over inflammatory, inciting comments on the 2023 election. FEG okays 1.9 trillion naira NNPCL expenditure on 44 roads. And at the downside of the page 26 of New Telegraph newspaper, and that's all the news on New Telegraph.
Right, before we move further, we have some comment on our Facebook page, and I would like to take that. We have the first one coming from Moses, and he said it is only Jagaban that was generous with his questions in Chatham House that he had to share it to all his aid. What a raising the pump price before the nation, on the face of the nation, on the face of insecurity, corruption, deplorable economy that gives birth to hike in all commodities. Everyone bears weakness to please. Nobody would do it for us better, even as we have a countdown to 37 days going on the poll for the Nigerian general election, after which that of the state election on the 11th of March 2023. I enjoy all surgery to be steadfast in doing the needful, even as we kick out the present deceit that still, sorry, can we go a little bit up again? Thank you, Linda. And there we have, he said, we kick out the present deceit that